Hi, thank you for joining us. I am joined here again by Patrick Madrid. He is the director of the Envoy Institute. He is the publisher of Envoy magazine, which you can find in hard copy as well as online. He's the author of numerous books, and he has TV and radio shows. Thank you for joining us again, Patrick.
Thank you, Martha. Always great to be here for the second time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Last time we talked about how this cradle Catholic became so involved in apologetics, but we really didn't hear about how you started out.
No, we didn't. Cradle Catholic, good point. A lot of the people that are involved in apologetics, which apologetics means defending the faith, explaining the faith, not in a defensive way, but giving the reasons for what we believe. A lot of people involved in apologetics are converts, many of them converts from Protestantism. And there are a lot of household names, people who've written books and done big conferences and things. I'm one of the few token cradle Catholics. So being born in Southern California into a Catholic family, raised Catholic, and never left the church, never attempted to leave the church, I come at it, much like yourself as a cradle Catholic, I come at this with maybe a certain different set of sensibilities or different perceptions that a convert may not have. And certainly converts have perceptions that we cradle Catholics can benefit from too.
Very complimentary.
I think so,
The
yeah.
one who have discovered in the church the fullness of revelation, and those of us who had it all along, but maybe came to an awakening.
Very much so, yeah. It's one of those things where we can't say, well, we don't need those converts, or we, on the same token, we shouldn't say, well, all we need is converts.
That's correct.
We need both. We need both sides of the story. How did I get started? Well, without even understanding what was happening, I got started in apologetics when I was growing up because I would bump into people who would challenge my Catholic faith, and I didn't know how to respond to them. I was in the 4th grade, for example, and I was on a field trip. I made sure that I sat next to this cute girl in my class on the bus on the way home. We were talking on the bus, and who knows what we were talking about, but somehow during the conversation, she said, well, what religion are you? And I said, Catholic. And it was at that point I knew that all my romantic hopes were dashed. Because, yeah, they were gone. Because when I said the word Catholic, she just had this sour look on her face. And
what was she?
I don't know, but she's definitely not Catholic, because what she said was, she said, oh, that's too bad, because Catholics are idolaters.
Oh.
Yeah, and I said, well, what are you talking about? I didn't even know what the word idolater was at the time. She said, Catholics worship statues. And I said to myself, I've never worshipped a statue. And I'm thinking, I've never seen my parents worship a statue. I've never even heard of this statue worshiping thing. She was referring to Exodus chapter 20, where God says to Moses, do not carve any graven images of anything in the sky above or the earth beneath or the waters beneath the earth. Do not bow down before them and worship them. And her church was teaching that Catholics were violating the scripture passage because we have crucifixes and statues of Mary and Jesus and all the other, precisely. Anything that's carved or in some way stamped or engraved or something would be a graven image. And they were teaching that Catholics were worshiping those graven images. And I didn't know then, in the 4th grade, that God there was forbidding idolatry. It could be the worship of a statue, a new car, your 401k, although there's not much anymore to worship.
Not a whole lot anymore.
Not a whole lot. But people worship all kinds of idols. So God was not forbidding statues per se. In fact, just 5 chapters later in Exodus chapter 25,
he asks for one.
He commands it.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, the 2 cherubim. He wants the 2 angels carved to sit on top of the Ark of the Covenant. And I discovered later that that was just one of many, many instances in the Old Testament where God either permits or commands religious images for religious purpose.
Not for idol worship,
right,
but for
veneration, and to remind us of heavenly realities that we don't see with our physical eyes. In the same way, Martha, that you keep a picture of your family in your purse. And if somebody were to see you kissing a picture of your family, they wouldn't say, oh my gosh, she loves Kodak paper, what's wrong with her?
Right.
They would know that you are showing love to what's represented by the picture. That's why we Catholics have statues and images and so forth. And
so in the 4th grade, you found yourself having to do what all of us need to do, which is explain and even defend when necessary?
Yes, except I couldn't. In the 4th grade, I had no earthly idea what to say. So all I could do is really say, well, I don't worship statues, and that's not much of an answer when the girl has been told by her pastor that we do. Later on, I got into high school.
If I may interject, not only told once, but probably she's
Many
being
times.
taught regularly and
Yes.
systematically.
Yes.
Whereas perhaps you and I or any other Catholic 4th grader or grown-up out there may not be taught systematically how to explain what we really do believe.
We're definitely not taught how to do it. The average Catholic in the United States, and I've traveled the world, so I think this is true in general across the world, but certainly in the United States, the average Catholic adult, and I'm talking about church-going Catholic adults, not people who have drifted away from the faith, but the average Catholic adult has about an 8th grade education in the Catholic faith, because typically when confirmation preparation classes end and they receive the sacrament of confirmation, that's when their study of the Catholic faith usually stops. Then they get busy and they start going to high school and college, and then they work and have children and all that. So we have several generations of Catholic adults who don't know the faith. At least they don't know it in an adult way. Right. And that's a big part of the problem, because our world has changed fundamentally with the internet, with the mass media, and all the different ways in which people can be bombarded with conflicting opinions and messages from different groups and all that. Not to mention the bioethical problems that are coming our way. I mean, abortion has been with us now for 30, 35 years, but what about cloning? Right. What about fetal stem cell research? And part of the problem, and this is why the Envoy Institute of Belmont Abbey College exists, this is why I'm so happy to be part of that venture, is to try to, through books, through magazines, through the internet, through the conferences and things, to help Catholics to be educated much better in their faith, so that they can answer questions about statues, or they can talk to an atheist and say, here's why I believe in God. Here's the rational reasons for belief in God, or here's why I oppose cloning. And Catholic adults today need this information. Unfortunately, they don't know where to go. Right. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for them to get that.
So the 4th grader who didn't know how to explain it found out. You became the great apologist and evangelist that you are today, and you're equipping the rest of us.
Well, I became an apologist. I wouldn't say a great apologist.
I add great.
Yes.
I think you're doing a great, terrific job across the nation and the world. What are some of the resources? What are you doing, for example, with Envoy Institute? How are you helping 4th graders and 40-year-olds defend the faith?
Yes, well, this is something that I get so excited about. In fact, it's what I'm thinking about when I wake up in the morning. It's what I think about when I'm going to bed at night, and I'm thinking about it all day long, and that is, what are some of the ways that we can harness existing technologies, old technologies like books. This is old technology, but people read books. So I try to prepare books, write books on different subjects that will assist on that level. Envoy magazine, maybe at some point during the show they can show a copy or a picture of Envoy.
That'd be terrific, yeah.
In Envoy magazine, it's a glossy, fun, high-impact graphic magazine where we take the timeless truths of the Catholic faith and we present them in an idiom that the modern audience can understand. This is why we use humor. This is why we try to hook them in with stuff that's like, wow, that's kind of funny, you know, and then they get interested in reading it, and before you know it, they find their way closer to the church. I have met many people, this is not an exaggeration, Martha, many people, and by many, I think I could say a few dozen at least, maybe 20, 30, who have told me over the years that they wound up coming into the Catholic Church as a result of somebody giving them a copy of Envoy magazine.
Wow, so it's written in a manner that not only equips a Catholic, but also speaks to a non-Catholic or an active Catholic? Or?
Yes, in fact, that's our stated goal. With each issue, we try to produce something that will be so intriguing that somebody who has no interest whatsoever in God, the Catholic Church, whatever, that even that person would pick it up and be tempted to thumb through it and start reading. And then they encounter the message, and then the message draws them deeper. That's one part of the Envoy Institute.
Let me just mention this for those who will call the Institute for a subscription.
800-55-ENVOY. That's
that's easy to remember. 1-800-55-ENVOY. Envoy meaning messenger.
Right.
Yeah. It's some people might find it that it's slightly irreverent, kind of the language, but it's because you mean to be modern. You mean to speak to the non-churchgoer.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's important for people to know, that we're not just talking to ourselves, we're trying to talk to those who are not among us.
Very true. That is a very good point. A lot of publications, I think, can serve the choir. You know, when you talk about you're preaching to the choir, there's a need for that, but there's also a need to have a dialogue with the world and a dialogue with people who don't have any interest in what you have to say, or at least they don't think they do.
And I think both are necessary.
Yes.
We need to speak to ourselves about certain things, and we need to be reaching out ever more actively to the outsiders, because of what you just mentioned. The outsiders are aggressively promoting and pushing their agendas forward at a fast pace.
They are. And this is where the next part of the Envoy Institute at Belmont Abbey College comes into play, and that is our conferences. Last year, for example, we had a summer leadership conference on the beautiful campus of Belmont Abbey College, which is just outside of Charlotte. Anybody who's interested in checking that out, the website is bac.edu or belmontabbeycollege.edu.
So it's a Catholic college run
Yes.
by monks?
Run by Benedictine monks.
Okay, and then you have an institute there.
Yes, exactly. Now the Institute is designed to do outreach to the world. The motto of Envoy magazine has always been bringing Christ to the world. And so the Institute exists to support that mission across the magazine platform, the internet, conferences, books and materials, all kinds of things, because people are attracted to different things. But to make use of modern mass media to do that.
And how is the conference set up? Is it a
Yeah.
summer conference? Or?
Yeah, the summer conference. We also do conferences in other parts of the country, and we're planning some larger ones I probably can't say quite yet where, because some of the details are not
Keep us
firmed
on
up.
your radar.
Yes. Yeah, and I will let you know as soon as we have those ready to go. But let's say last summer's conference was on the theme of combating relativism and the culture of death. So we brought in we brought in a dozen well-known Catholic speakers, such as Dr. Peter Kraft, for example, a philosopher at Boston College and a famous author. And so we spent 3 days coming at it from all different angles. We looked at secularism, we looked at the culture of doubt, we looked at the whole issue of moral relativism, which essentially says, look, if you don't like abortion, don't have one, but you can't tell me that I can't have an abortion, because you can't say that what I believe is wrong. That's relativism. This coming summer,
Tell us about that when we come back from the break.
When
but just as we lead to that break, this is so important because, as Pope Benedict XVI said even before becoming a pope, and surely after his pontificate began, we are encountering to a great degree secularism, relativism, and all kinds of isms that are eroding our faith. When we come back, Patrick will talk to us about that and how he is helping us counter that. Stay tuned. Don't move away. We're back with Patrick Madrid, and we're talking about Envoy Institute, a training institute at Belmont Abbey College in Charlotte. We were just talking about relativism and secularism and all these other isms that are eroding our faith. Tell us what you're doing to help people respond to those challenges of our time.
We kind of touched on a few points, but to recap what we talked about before the break, Envoy magazine, which is the print edition as well as the internet edition that people can subscribe to anywhere in the world.
How much is the subscription?
It's a quarterly magazine, and the annual subscription is $39.99, but we run specials all the time, so it's not uncommon to get a special for $25, for example.
But it's a good investment in our own faith.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're feeding your mind, feeding your soul, and certainly the electronic edition is also a great buy too, because I think it's like $11, $12, and you get the exact magazine exactly as it appears in your hands if you were to hold it in your hands, but you get it on the internet. You could flip the pages. Any of the links or emails or anything like that in the magazine are actually live, so you could click it and it will launch to the internet. We're able to embed video and audio files in the magazine, so it's really something to be able to do that. That's one.
Let me just mention here, Pope Paul VI, years and years ago in 1975, said in Evangelii Nunciandi, his apostolic exhortation on evangelization in the modern world, that if we, the church, did not use the modern means that we have at our disposal, mass media, to evangelize, we would feel guilty before the Lord. And I don't think you're going to have to feel guilty.
I hope not.
You're using them in a marvelous way.
Thank
so
you.
you have the Institute.
Yeah, the Envoy Institute at Belmont Abbey College is a joint venture, you might say, or it's an alliance between Envoy magazine, which I with help from others. Of course, it wasn't on my own, but we established in 1996. And about 3 years ago, I was fortunate enough to combine forces with this wonderful Benedictine college in the heart of the South, in beautiful North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte, in the little town of Belmont. And this is an interesting story, and it relates to the Envoy Institute. The Benedictine monks, they arrived there shortly after the Civil War. And at this time, this area was a slave plantation. And so Catholics were practically non-existent in that part of the South at the time. So when they, through a series of different events, acquired this large tract of land, it was at least 600 acres or something like that, they changed it from being a slave plantation to being a center of higher learning, and they built an abbey, they built a college. If you go into the basilica there, you'll see a large round rock, much larger than this table, and it's kind of hollowed out on the top. That's the holy water font. That used to be, ages ago, that used to be a Cherokee altar of some sort.
Wow.
But it became the block upon which the slaves were sold into slavery. So the men and the women and the children would stand on this, and then they would be auctioned off to the highest bidder. And what a beautiful thing that this is now where the symbol of the waters of baptism that free us from the slavery of sin is there at Belmont Abbey College. So the outreach to the world through Envoy magazine, through the other materials that we provide, as well as on the internet, I think it's fundamental to our age. The conferences, I mentioned that last year's conference was
on relativism.
Yes.
How about this year?
This one is on, the theme of this one is called Answering Atheism and the Culture of Doubt. So whereas last year we were talking about relativism and the culture of death, now it's the culture of doubt. And all these books that have been coming out recently from prominent atheists attacking faith in Jesus Christ, attacking faith in God at all, are taking a toll. People are beginning to wonder, and so we need to help them know how to respond to that.
Now, there's been a shift, hasn't there? Before, some atheists, they simply don't believe, and they respected that we did.
Yeah.
But now there seems to be a shift, whereas they don't believe, and they are not happy that you believe, that I believe. And so they're outright attacking Christianity and maybe even specifically Catholicism.
Yeah.
So would you say that we need to be more equipped, better equipped, equipped differently now in light of that new atheism?
All of the above. We do need to be more and better equipped for sure, but we also have to be equipped differently, like you say. We have to know not just the timeless truths of belief in God, going back to such things as, say, St. Thomas Aquinas and his 5 demonstrations for the existence of God. Atheists know those, and they have their rejoinders, they have their arguments against it. But we have to be able to grapple with issues such as the problem of evil. And why is there suffering in the world? That's something that atheists like to throw up at believers. How can God be all good if he allows a tsunami to wipe out 250,000 people? That's not a good God. And we have to have an answer for that. And we do have answers for that, but people don't know the answers to that.
And they may not even know that we too, as believers, have been grappling with those questions, because it's even written in the scriptures.
Yeah.
Numerous psalms talk about why do the evil prosper and the good seem not to.
Yes.
But these are things that we need to come up with, answers that are convincing and rational.
Yes, and the nice thing is that these answers are there. It's like diamonds all over the ground. All you have to do is stoop down and pick them up. And to make them even easier, through the conferences, we have them professionally filmed so that just to make it as easy as possible. Take the talks by Dr. Peter Kraft in our last summer's conference on moral relativism. He gave 4 mind-blowing, and I think I could say that without exaggeration, mind-blowing talks. The other talks were wonderful too, mind-blowing in their own way. But people anywhere in the world, atheists, Catholics, Protestants, whatever, they can go to the envoyinstitute.net website and they can download these professionally filmed videos right to their computer instantaneously, because we make all of them available through audio files. You can get them on DVD if you want. You could download them to your computer, put them on your iPod and go out walking and listen to these things. And there's now no barrier from distance, because with the internet you can access this kind of thing from anywhere.
So if you don't go to Charlotte, to
Belmont Abbey College,
then you can have it come to you.
Yeah, have it come to you.
Yeah.
We'll come to you.
Yeah, that's
We'll come to you
excellent.
through Envoy, through the conferences, and we're also going to be taking the conferences on the road to major cities around the United States.
That's terrific. Now, do you have a lineup of speakers for this coming summer's atheism?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. We have, Dr. Peter Kraft is coming back. He's a premier apologist in the area of atheism. In fact, he co-authored a book with Father Ronald Taselli called Handbook of Christian Apologetics, which is probably the gold standard for popular, when I say popular apologetics, I don't mean superficial, I mean for the accessible to the average person.
That doesn't have a philosophy or theology degree.
Exactly. That book by Dr. Peter Kraft and Father Ron Taselli, it's called Handbook of Christian Apologetics. It's, I think, the gold standard for how to respond to atheists. And he will be there to speak to us.
That's good. He's a prolific writer.
He is.
Yeah.
He's written 50 books.
Yeah.
And
He's a
I
professor
think
at Boston College, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I'm a hot shot. I wrote 14 books. And then Peter Kraft comes along, 50 books. I realize I'm a slacker by
I've written
comparison.
0, so you're a hot shot and he's a super hot shot. Good. Who else do you have lined up there?
Edward Fesser, professor of philosophy in Southern California. He'll be there. Benjamin Weicker, who recently co-authored a book on answering atheism with Dr. Scott Hahn. We have Dawn Eden, who's an accomplished author, and she's going to be giving a talk, actually a couple of talks, on sexual atheism, which is a very interesting angle. She's going to be talking about how atheism is so pervasive through the sexual revolution and the subculture of promiscuous sexuality in the United States, how atheism is actually propagating itself through the sexual promiscuity in this culture.
And she will be speaking from personal experience, probably,
Yes.
because I've heard her testimony,
Yes.
and she herself was sucked in as
She
a
was.
writer, a columnist on
She
rock.
was a rock and roll writer.
That's right.
Yeah, rock and roll writer. She wrote a very good book called The Thrill of the Chaste, C-H-A-S-T-E. And it's a wonderful book that describes her conversion from being a very promiscuous young woman to becoming chaste and waiting for the Lord, waiting for her future husband. So she's going to give a talk on that. I'll be giving a talk. I talk at all the conferences as well. And we have a few surprise people that we're waiting to confirm a couple of things, but it's going to be a powerful lineup. And here again, professionally recorded. And what's nice is that people who make a trip of it, they can enjoy the beautiful grounds of Belmont Abbey College. I'm certain that there are people who are watching us right now who are thinking, well, you know, my son or daughter is in high school, and in a year or two he's going to be going off to college. Please do yourself a favor, check out Belmont Abbey College. It's a beautiful and, until recently, a relatively unknown jewel of Catholic higher
I'm glad you
education.
mentioned it, because there are parents looking always for great places
There
to send
are.
their children. And in case someone is thinking, oh, well, I don't know any atheist, beware. Sometimes our Catholic kids grew up in Catholic school, they were altar servers, or they were in the youth ministry, or this or the other. They go off to a college and they lose their faith.
Yeah.
Because this atheism is so pervasive
It is.
on campuses. I heard not too long ago a mother talking about her young 12-year-old daughter who doesn't want to make her confirmation, and she says, I don't believe in God. Now, how can a 12-year-old come to the conclusion that God does not
Yeah.
exist? So
She
atheism,
learned that in the classroom, I'm sure of that.
she has heard it somewhere. And they're being exposed to untruths on TV as if they were the Word of God.
Yeah.
So in our closing moments, what would you say to parents, what would you say to folks who don't have children, to anybody, about strengthening their faith and further equipping themselves to counter this tide?
First thing, and I'm speaking as a father myself, first thing is be diligent. Be diligent in your prayer, be diligent in, be attentive to your children. Don't just assume that they're going to turn out okay because you keep a nice home and things are peaceful. What they're getting from the outside. Be diligent about what you permit them to see on the internet. I would say be very careful about the internet. Be very careful about television. The second thing.
How about careful about what goes into their ears, their iPods and music in general
Yeah,
and
definitely.
so forth?
Absolutely. Secondly, I would say we have to be proactive. We have to teach our children basic apologetics. It's like inoculating them against diseases. Unless they have a certain immunization, they may catch the disease. So we need to teach the children in an age-appropriate way from the time they're young what they believe and why they believe it, so that when they bump into somebody who says, hey, yeah, you're just an idiot because you believe in God, that's anti-scientific. They need to know how to respond. Plug into the Envoy Institute at Belmont Abbey College, number 3. We are not the only organization. There are other excellent organizations out there, Catholic Answers, EWTN, and others. But the Envoy Institute can provide instantaneous resources, Envoy magazine, the downloadable videos, the conferences, and many other things. So that would be another proactive step parents could take.
And for those who want to keep track of everything that you're doing, speaking, traveling, etc., they can tweet or something. They can follow him on Twitter. That's what it is,
Twitter,
right?
yeah. Twitter is that little microblogging. I'm going to get you on Twitter.
You
we
get
gotta
me on
get
Twitter.
it,
You all
yeah.
get yourselves on Twitter
Yeah.
also. And also you have patrickmadrid.com,
Right.
and
That-
you have
Yes.
blogspot.com.
Sort of.
Sort of.
PatrickMadrid.com is the main website, and from there you can get to Twitter. Twitter is this little communication. When people go there, they'll figure it out. The blog
You
is...
could like talk instantaneously with us,
can.
you with us.
Yeah, exactly.
good.
It is really neat, and I'm building a very large list of a very large Catholic community, thousands of Catholics through Twitter, where we can communicate quickly with each other. Then the blog is patrickmadrid.blogspot.com, but you can get to all of it from patrickmadrid.com.
And I encourage each one of you to do that today, that the Lord may bless
Right now.
you in many ways so that you might learn the faith better and more effectively explain it to others. Until we meet again, God bless you and keep up the good evangelistic work.